Okay, so, all right.
Hello,
Hi.
and welcome to another episode of The Pedophile Huntress. Tonight, I have with me a returning guest. Soni has been with me before. You can hear her entire story in a previous episode where she talks about her childhood and the quest, I guess, that put her on the drive for where she is today. She's back with us today to talk
Yeah.
about PPE Kids, which is really exciting. It provides this service that she does provides training and background checks to ensure child safety, legal protection, staff confidence, and just to create secure environments for everyone. So I'm really excited to have her back and have her talk with me. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
so
I'm
it's
so
so
happy to be
wonderful that you're
back.
here. Yeah, it's just absolutely wonderful. You've done a lot since you were on last time. You did talk.
Yeah.
Now tell me, PPE stands for.
Protect, prevent, and empower. So we protect communities, prevent abuse, and we empower organizations and communities. So
I
that's what
love that.
PPE
So
stands
since you've
for.
been with me, yes, you
Mhm.
have done a lot. Why don't you kind of talk about now you can find PPE Kids on YouTube, Twitter, you can find her on Facebook. But tell us in a
Yeah.
nutshell, tell me what you've been up to. Both Sony and I come from pasts that were
Mhm.
less than desirable. We both came through
Yeah.
childhood trauma, these
Yeah.
sexual crimes that have set us up for God to say, we're going to use this tragedy and turn it for good. So talk to
Mhm.
me about what you've been up to.
So I guess I'll kind of, so a few years back, like during the pandemic, I had to, um, I needed to deal with my past, and in dealing with it, I decided that I needed to feel safe, and so part of feeling safe was, um, and I always say that, I part of at first it meant getting a dog, and I got a dog, and but then I was like, and my therapist said, maybe you should try dating again. And I was like, or maybe you should bring it to God and try dating again. And I laughed and I said, don't you know, God hates me. And and I swear that's when God said, oh, really, hold my wine. I got this. And so I
I
always
love
laugh
it.
because that's when he introduced me to Bob, who is a pastor.
Oh,
And Bob,
wow.
yeah, and he brought me right back to God, which I always knew in the back of my mind. That was always something that I was told myself. I said, if any guy I meet is worth anything, he's going to bring me back to God. I don't know how I knew that, but I knew that that was the criteria. Just because I had always been very religious, and so the first thing he said was, "We need to go to church," I was going, "Okay, you got my attention. Okay, all right." But we got married
Right?
and we moved to Virginia, and the more I
So, okay,
dealt
so
with,
right, so you said a lot right there. So this is in the pandemic. You've
yes,
got some healing to do. You think about
yes,
getting a dog, but instead you end up with a husband, right? Is
both.
that what
I
you
get a
just
dog,
said?
and so I got
All
this
right,
dog,
so
but it was so because so God knew, like, I was
how
very closed off
cool.
from the world because in my mind the world wasn't safe, right? So I hid
Mhm.
in my house before, even this is before that, all my life, right? I would stay in my bedroom. I had this huge beautiful,
Okay.
and we moved, and I moved to Cannonsburg, into this beautiful neighborhood in Pittsburgh, and I stayed in my bedroom all the time. I never was even in. I had this beautiful house, and I was only in one room because that was the only room that I felt safest. Still never felt safe, right? So when I got this dog, uh, you got to walk a dog. You got to do stuff with a dog. So God knew
Yeah.
better, and He knew that if I was taking care of another being, that I would take care of that being, and it would get me outside and into the world. And I went and I got this dog. Her name is Margot, and she is an absolute brat because I spoil everybody and every pet.
I love it.
Right. But she got me outside, and because she got me outside, when Bob so Bob's so we met on eHarmony, and and I only said hi once. I think I winked at him or something, and when I said hi back, he sent flowers to my job and everything, and so I was like, well, first of all, I didn't work there anymore because I never had my because of the line of work I did. I was doing human resources, so I never had my current employer posted anywhere because you don't want people to be mad at you and find your job. So yeah,
Right,
so
right.
I never did that. But yeah, but we had so he sent flowers to my old job and they kept them, but that's okay. But no, he asked me out um and we had a great time and we just hit it off from there. But the
Yeah.
moment I met him, I was like, first of all, I was surprised that he was so tall because he's actually 6'5" and I are 6'6". When I saw him in his pictures, he was standing next to his son, and I said, "Oh, he's short like me," but no, his son was like 6'10" or something. I was like,
So,
"Oh my gosh!"
no, I think this is cool. And I want you to continue, but I think it's really
Yeah,
neat that you found your husband on
mm-hmm.
an online tool because I also found my husband that way. And I think
Really?
it's
Yes.
important because people that come through these childhood tragedies, they stay single and they stay away from relationship. But I've been with my
Yeah.
husband for 10 years. And yeah, we met on an online tool. So I just wanted to give a shout out for you guys
Yes.
sitting out there that don't leave your homes and don't want to
Yes.
connect. Look at Sony
Yes.
and I. We
It,
both
it can
found
happen.
our
Yeah.
partners. Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so keep
Right.
going. I
And
like
so
it.
he asked, but he asked me out, and the moment after I got over him being way up here, because I'm actually 5'5" or 5'5". I say 5'6", but technically it's 5'5". But anyway, so he's like a whole foot taller, and I was going, okay, that's not this okay. But anyway, but it was like I knew he was special, and we hit it off, and we were kind of inseparable after that, and so and then
Awesome.
so we got married, and we both knew that we wanted he wanted to take me somewhere safe, that where I felt safe. And my daughter, who had moved to North Carolina, she just announced she was pregnant and about to have a baby, and so he was like, why don't we
Mm,
move down here? And so I was like, okay. So that's how we got to Virginia. We didn't go I didn't
okay.
want to invade her space, so I moved like two
Hmm.
hours away in Virginia, where she's in Greensboro. But that was the thing. And so once I got here, first of all, I was amazed at how beautiful it was. But in all of that, we're in like rural Virginia, so the hustle
Okay.
and the bustle of the big city gone. It's a traffic jam when there's 10 cars on the road. Swear.
So,
When
can I ask you this? So, you meet your husband, and we're going to get into this, but how then do you share that you have just been on this healing journey when you meet him? Can you share that real quick?
Well, so I'm a self saboteur. I try to,
Okay.
I try to mess my life up as much as possible. So I think it was like the fifth date, or something like that. I just blurted it out, and because I expected him to run, right?
Okay,
But he
yeah.
didn't run. I was thinking he's great, and another part of me
Hmm.
was thinking, I'll fix that. He treats me like a queen, and in my back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, I can fix that. He'll hate you in a minute. Give me a second here. But because that's when you're here's the thing about when
Yeah.
you've been abused and you've been through trauma. Trauma. You're used to trauma. You
Hmm.
can deal with trauma. It's good stuff it's hard. It's the happiness that's hard. And
Yes.
so he made me so happy, and I was just and he wasn't cheating. He didn't have, he wasn't mean, he wasn't vindictive, he wasn't narcissistic. All his responses, I would be like, wow, that's a healthy response. Just just because I knew enough about what was healthy and what wasn't, that when he was safe, I'd be like, wow, let me write that down. That's a good one. But he was really that really good.
Yeah.
And so, and every time I try to say, you know what, you've just been divorced. You're not ready for a relationship. Call me back later. And he'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Who are you to tell me what I want? And so he was so, not only was he incredibly healthy and incredibly understanding, but he saw me and he saw what I was trying to do. He says, you keep trying to chase me away because you want to be unhappy. And I was like, you know what? you need to drink your soda. Is what you need to do. But you need to drink your iced tea over there, sweet tea, and but yeah, but he'd be right, and so, but yeah, I just kind of dumped it on because I was so sure that it was going to cause him to treat me like dirt, and in the back of my mind, that
Hmm.
back of my mind, being treated like dirt was what made sense to me, and so,
Hmm.
it's not. I'm not proud of that, but that's been my childhood. That's been my life. My first marriage, you know, um, I in my first marriage I did everything, and my
Hmm.
ex would sit around with the kids and make fun of mom, and so that was what they did, and so
Oh, just saying that, I'll tell you, isn't that a theme of abusive homes where mothers
yeah,
do become this product, the project of the family to make fun of her? I got made fun of.
yes,
I just can't believe you said that.
yeah,
There's a lot of wisdom in that because it's just
yeah,
this constant abuse to
yeah,
degrade us.
and you tolerate it because that's all you know. Like if people have
Yes.
always, I was, and it didn't make any difference because I was teased and throughout my life,
Right.
growing up, I was taught called names. I was teased for being smart. I was teased for being darker skinned. I was teased. So for my
Yes.
family to come home and make fun of me,
Hmm.
I had, my first husband. He would, laugh at me for being worried about bills. Meanwhile, I'm paying him all, and he's playing video games. So yeah, and you're worried. You
Yeah.
worried all day. Well, if you would help, I don't know, but
Hmm.
that was, life, and so he was just not that at all. And so dealing with, being around somebody that was so loving and understanding and kind, and he listened to everything I didn't, and so everything that I had to say, and
Hmm.
that was amazing, and it was just so freeing. And so, but yeah, I really tried to get rid of poor man. That poor
I
man.
laugh because I can relate. I relate. So,
But
but you
yeah,
don't get rid of him, and now you
no,
guys are living in this beautiful, peaceful place,
yes,
and then start your journey from there. No, and I love your free flowing talk because it's absolutely beautiful, and you've said a lot of
yeah.
wise things in
But
that.
I'll
So
talk
keep
all day.
going.
You don't want this, but I'll
No,
talk all day.
no, it's
It's fine.
fine.
But
You're
well,
doing
you know what?
fine.
But here's the thing about being out and living in, because we pretty much live in a picture. Like we where we live at, we can watch the mountains touch the sky in the clouds. We can see them merge
Yes.
together. That's how high up in the mountains we are, and it's beautiful, and it is God's country, and so it is God's land, and you see His work and His masterful artistry
Yeah.
everywhere you look. And when you see that, it's so calming and so
Hmm.
peaceful that, I mean, I think I have gone. It has just that alone has healed me. But with all that peace
Yes.
come me being able to walk with God and talk with God and truly build a relationship with God. I think people say they have a relationship with God, but you know, and I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying when everything is stripped away and it's just
Hmm.
you and Him, you and God,
Yes.
you and this being, and you understanding Him. I think it was difficult for a while because I truly had to die. And I say die, my old ways had to die because I would watch
Hmm.
horror movies and crime shows and um, all kind of kill 'em shows because that was terror. That was what was comfortable. Again, awfulness
Hmm.
was comfortable. That was
Right.
sitting around watching horror movies.
Hmm.
That's comfort food for me because it's terrible and that's all I know. So that's what I watched. But in order to walk with God, I had to clean up what I was putting in my head. I had to clean up what I was putting in my spirit. So um, I I stopped.
And
I stopped
yeah, well,
doing
one of
those
the
things.
things I think about that, saying that, it's funny, God moved me out of city. I lived in Portland, Oregon, outside of it. And now I live on the top of a mountain where the sky
See, you
indeed
understand?
meets the
Yeah,
mountains. And I'll tell you, it has changed me. I feel so
doesn't it?
incredibly blessed. So I feel
Mm.
like just coming here, so much of who I was changed because I look out my windows and I feel connected to
Yeah,
God in some ways. Like it was
yeah,
natural. Yeah, but I love that. No, I totally
Yeah.
relate to that.
Yeah, and I just like, cause I used to watch horror movies, and like my YouTube feed was nothing but death, death. She did this, and that's all it was. And it
Mm,
wasn't like I
mhm,
wasn't, I wasn't a serial killer in a making. I was just someone who was so traumatized that
mhm,
that was comforting for me. And so
mhm.
I cleaned all that out of my, deleted all those subscriptions, and I started to put um, things that were um, more more godly, more more God-like in my feeds and around me. And and that took a lot, but it helped a lot. It helped me to
Mhm.
get closer to God, because there was no interference, there was no darkness or anything like that, ruining the frequency, as it were, to talk to God. And so,
Yeah.
but in that being, I felt that God called me to do more with my abuse, because a lot of people who have been where I've been, or don't have, they're so everybody's broken in this world, but some of them are so broken that they don't know they're broken, or they don't or they're broken and they don't know how to repair themselves. But a lot of them, or they just don't think about it. But God, I've always been someone to help others, and God just said, okay, you're going to use all your skills and you're going to help. And so that's
That's
where
awesome.
PPE Kids came from, was just how
That's
can we help?
awesome.
Yeah, because when I realized, and this is what the training is based on, once I realized that what happened to me wasn't just a thing. There's actually a step by step, a gradual step by step that happens. It's called grooming. And once you realize that there's a step by step process that
Hmm.
abusers take to get to harm a child, then you can interrupt it. And I didn't understand why all the trainings I had seen, and they're wonderful trainings, they put a lot of effort into them, they're beautifully done, but they don't talk about interrupting the change. They don't talk about the actual steps in
Mm.
how to interrupt them. And so that's where behind the smile comes from. It's and that's and then we said, well, let's take it a step further, because, and well, I'll talk about
Mm.
Lumi next, but that's where the training comes from, because in the training we give, so me and my crime show self, I said, well, what makes up a pedophile? So there are actual
Right?
there are lots of different there are about, I think, about 7 or 8 different. The one I left out, that's a sadistic predator. I left that one out because that one just wants to hurt a child. But the other ones I put in there so you understand the mindset of a pedophile. So you think, not all pedophiles are just, some of them think they're in a relationships with a child.
Hmm.
That's the more fixated offender. Then you have the offender, the situational offender. Well, the situational offender usually has something bad happening in his own life, whether it be drugs, alcohol, divorce, some kind of upset in his life, and he sees in a moment to harm a child in that instant. Then there's the opportunistic offender. They'll go out and they'll so say, you need a babysitter and you can't, well, he'll take that opportunity to those 10 minutes alone with a child to harm a child. So, and then you have the peer on peer abuser, and then you have the power based abuser, and that one is more like, the power base is what we see in, like pastors or stepfathers.
Okay.
So yeah, those are, they're power based because they use their authority to abuse. And so and then you'll have and the power base, and when it's power based at home, it's usually the stepfather who's harming the
Or your
child that way.
father.
Or your
Yeah.
father, yeah, that's the
Hmm.
power based offender. So that's, so and a lot of, and I think, just for me, I wanted to give people this information. I want them to know, you know what these abusers are thinking. And so then we go, the training goes from that to how do these abusers work to get a hold of a child? How do they target their victims? And then once they target their victims, how do they go through stages of grooming? Because there's seven. Um, how
Okay.
do how does each profile go go about performing the seven stages of grooming with your child? So and because I feel like if you know these, then you can stop them. You can see them.
Yeah, you know what? I would like you actually for the listener. This is so good.
Mhm.
I love this educational piece. Go through each one of those steps for us.
Okay. Well, the first one is, well, they target the victim. And how do they do that? Um, they do that with a lot of ways. The first thing, so what they do is they look for lonely kids, kids that are by themselves. If a
Mm,
child is LGBT, part of the LGBT um, community, they'll look for those children. Another way they do it is through and actually, and this is the interesting part as well, because it happens differently um, online than it does in person. But the steps are still there. They just go a lot faster. And so, but
okay.
and and I say that because one way they get a child to um, one way they get a child they target the victim is they'll put in, because kids are lonely or what, and they'll put in
Mm-hmm.
hashtag so alone or something like that. Well, pedophiles will actually search for those hashtags and reach out to those
Wow.
children. Yeah, they
Wow.
call it psychiatrists call it the digital equivalent of scanning the playground. So
Wow.
that's what they're doing. And so that's what like you wouldn't think that they're you know that so manipulative. And that's another thing we have. We talk about the so in there is going to be in the training is going to be real quotes from the um the abusers. And so and they'll be sprinkled throughout the first three modules. But once they but the second stage is once they um target the child, then they go and then they gain access or opportunity so that they can get to them. This might be saying, oh, let me, babysit them, or, I think I need to, like tutoring or something like that, and fixated, and believe, and fixated. Some, they'll do this different ways. Some people will do it where, so a fixated will volunteer for childcare, whereas an opportunistic
Mm.
one will wait for lapses in supervision. They'll wait till nobody's looking to gain access. The situational will kind of capitalize on the natural settings. When there's a sleepover or there's a party. And the power base will just say, "Well, I'm so and so, so I'm going to do a one-on-one talk with you, young, person." And then there's the peer or juvenile. He'll just use his the culture to invite somebody over. So that's how they get access to the child. The third stage is going to be building trust with that child, um, and the offender will create an emotional connection with the child, and to try to get them to become part of their emotional support network, and try to fill a role that the child might need. So, and a lot of people always wonder, what can you do? One of the best things you can do to stop this one is to pay attention to your child, talk to your child, because they need to know that you're in their emotional support network. If not, a predator can sneak in there and
Yeah, I think
become.
that's a big one. This is
Yeah,
fascinating to me. I'm
yeah,
fascinated by everything you're saying, but I
yeah,
think it's so true. This is that really pivotal step, isn't it? Where
yeah.
they're now
Mm-hmm.
gaining control
Mm-hmm.
into this child's life.
Yeah, once they, and they all do it differently. Like the fixated will use flattery,
Hmm.
gifts, form a special bond, as it were, and And opportunistic will they'll kind of opportunistic will kind of kind of gaslight them or love bomb them, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
by saying, oh, I feel so close to you, no one understands me, I feel like I can tell you anything. And then situational will just put themselves in position to act like a supportive friend. And the power base will say, will tell them how respected they are. And or whereas the peer will say, well, we're just going to be, we're cool, so that's how, we just wants to appear cool to the child. And so they all have a way where they do that. And the next one is stage 4, and that's the isolation of the victim. They'll gradually separate the child from their friends
Yes.
and their family. And this can look like a lot of, and and they'll, for the fixated one, they'll slowly undermine and discredit your parents. They don't understand you like I do. Or if your parents says no to something, they'll give you a secret yes. Or say you can't have something, they'll give you, they'll sneak and give it to you. And the opportunistics they'll have they'll see quick isolation, closed doors, online chats, private online chats,
Mm.
things like that where they're alone. And situational, they will usually exploit unsupervised time with parents. And then, when no one's down, when no one's around, that kind of thing. And then you have the
Mm-hmm.
power based, and um, they'll create a special role or response, or to make them seem privileged or better, so that they'll give them
Hmm.
special things so that they feel, better or different than everybody else, because this is my special helper here. So that kind of thing, like a teacher, or something like that. The teacher or principal, you're my special helper, that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Or in the house, or in a house, in a home setting, why can't you be as good as so and so? They're so great, again, putting them on that pedestal. And the peer juvenile will, they'll just encourage secrecy among friends. Oh, don't tell so and so this, because that makes that makes the child feel special, because they know something that nobody else knows. So they all do it differently. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have the stage 5, and that's the desensitization to touch and secrets. And
Mm.
this is where um, and this is a lot of times, this can happen right in front of them, especially if you have the fixated. They'll do it, they'll, ease more and more affection, tickling, touching, and the child doesn't really like it, but
Okay.
they're laughing,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. And so that, and the opportunistics will do quickly. They'll take advantage of the situation, maybe wrestling. They'll, touch somewhere they shouldn't be touching, and wrestling and things like that.
And
And
this
so
can be done, you were saying not in isolation. This can be done anywhere, but it's a
mhm,
desensitization. I think this is such
so
good
important.
information. Yes.
Yeah, if you see this, you read, and that's another thing, is that um, we don't just tell them the steps. We teach them. We say, okay, now that you know the steps, you need to look for them in clusters, because it's one thing to see it just one stage happening.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean it. That doesn't. But if you get 2 or 3 together, you need to be concerned, and you need to, And so
So
that's where this
what
comes in at.
and we will go over it. I mean, we'll come back to it, but I do want to know,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you walk in and sometimes it's uncomfortable, right? You're like, whoa, that's kind of uncomfortable the way that that person's tickling them or whatever. We
Yeah.
should say something, but we don't.
Yeah.
We are, it's so funny how society, we look the other way. I cannot tell you how many times
Hmm.
we just don't open the door or step through and say, no, don't do that. You know what I mean? Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Oh, absolutely. That's what we do. And so and are you get mad at the child? Why are you whining?
Yes.
What is wrong? They're
Yes.
just tickling you. My goodness. Well, if they don't want to be
Yes.
tickled, and so
Yes.
yeah, or you get mad at the child that
And I'm
your child
sure
is
that the child,
so is high
I'm sorry.
strung or whatever. Yep, sorry.
Yeah. Well,
The child
no.
is high strung or whatever, and they're not.
No, they're not. And I also believe that the child has a sense coming from this person. I think a lot of these people also kind of carry dark spirits with them. I'm just going to be honest because I
Yeah.
think it's such a
Mm-hmm.
dark thing that children can sense there's something not right that's happening. And yet we make them override what they're feeling. But now keep
Yeah.
going because you're on step 4.
Oh, okay. Oh no, I was on five. I'm gonna go to six, but um
Okay.
yeah, so five, so okay, was five was desensitization, and then six is okay, is maintaining secrecy. So this is where they prevent disclosure by creating loyalty. And are you either create loyalty, fear, or
Mm,
or guilt? And
okay.
you do this, you say, and you manipulate and you threat, you say things like, fixated will say, well, this is our special secret. The fixated is more, so the fixated offender is more thinking they really think they're in a relationship with this child. They are usually sexually drawn to children, and so they really think this is a relationship, even though groomers are usually grooming multiple children, but they think they're in a relationship with this child, and they think that this is, so in their mind, this is love and loyalty, and that's what they promise the child. This is our special secret. And then
Hmm.
the opportunistic will use threats and embarrassment. No one will believe you. They're going to all think you're this or you're that. Your
Mm,
family will be ruined. They're all going to be mad at you. And then the situational offender will kind of blame it on an accident. Oh, I was stressed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. And our the power base uses authority. If you tell, you'll get in trouble too. If you tell, your mom will be mad at you. Those kind of things to keep the child quiet. And then there's the peer. They use pressure and ridicule. I'll make fun of you. Everyone's going to make fun of you if you say
mm,
anything. And so um,
right.
and it's awful. And then there's the last stage, and that's the control and the maintenance, and that's where they sustain the abuse over time through gaslighting
Mm,
cycles of harm and relief and threats and rewards, and they just keep going around in circle. They create fixated offenders will create dependency by alternating abuse and affection back and forth.
mm,
And
yeah,
so I mean,
yeah.
can the when I think of how awful, kids, what they go through, to be so little and so young and have to deal with that, to be gaslighted like that is difficult as an adult,
It
let alone a
is.
child. And so, but
Well, they
yeah,
don't have the manipulation of their minds that we have. They're
right,
learning. These abusers are teaching them to manipulate the facts and
yes,
manipulate their mind. But
mm-hmm,
listening to you, I can just see this so many places in my
yeah,
childhood. It was everywhere. And
yes,
rejection is a huge thing, like you say, that
mm-hmm.
when I'm abusing you, I'm with you, but when I'm not abusing you, you're isolated and I'm rejecting you, but then I pull you close to.
And you're like, okay,
Yes, it's this
yeah,
back
so
and forth. Children want the attention too. It's it's
yeah,
it's a terrible thing.
yeah, and it's like, and you don't know, after a while, that awfulness, because that something good will come later, you get used to the awful, because you're like, well, he'll be nice later. It's
Well, oh, exactly. It makes me
mm,
think of this one. I blog a lot, and I did a blog that said, when you abuse a dog runs and hides under the table. But so sadly, when you abuse a child, if you've groomed them correctly, they'll come back to you. And
oh
isn't
yeah,
that a dog has better sense than an
yeah.
abused child?
Well, and an abused child, they don't even blame you, they blame themselves. As
Yes,
far
they
as
do.
abused children, they don't blame you, they blame themselves. They take it
Isn't
into
that through the
themselves.
grooming process?
hmm Well, and but it's also true of most things. Like if it's well, when it's your parents,
Hmm.
and they do something negative, you don't take it in as them. You take it in as, what did I do? That I did something
Hmm.
bad.
Hmm.
But yeah, but the grooming process does bring that bring that sort of thought pattern to the groomers. Yeah, but yeah. And so, but yeah, that's and so, but they all do it differently. So they'll do situational abusers. They'll do it's always stress. They'll give you a half-hearted sorry, I didn't mean, I was just stressed.
Hmm.
And and then you have the power base who says, well, nobody will believe you because I'm so respected and blah blah blah, and or I'm dad and your mom loves me more, and that kind of thing. Or and you have that in all of your that's
Hmm.
you have it in all of them. And so that's what we teach them, that this is what's happening to your child. And this what could be happening to a child in these situations, and this is what you need to understand. And so, but that's just I think that's just the third module. There are five, so
Wow.
they're pretty intense. And so, we have like little breaks where we give them words of encouragement, because I think it's overwhelming to hear all that. And then when you go into
So
the bear.
before you move on,
Mm,
I want to just stop here and talk about this. This is just so good, and I love the work you're doing. It's so important.
sure.
As so you come in, you hear the PPE modules, and now you're thinking this. Oh my gosh, I almost I you go back, you're going back, my child, with all of these relationships, you might be able to see pieces of that in some of those relationships.
Oh
And
yeah.
so how do you tell people, how do you know the difference? To me, we should
Mm-hmm.
err on the side of always protecting if somebody is coming in
Mm-hmm.
and tickling, or if you don't know
Yeah.
this person or it's a new attachment, err on the side of intervening, right?
Yes. And that's where, okay, so that's where the Lumi comes in. So Bob has
Okay.
he has the little cartoon character called Lumi. And Lumi is
I
a
love
little
it.
and it's short for like illuminate the truth. So
Okay. Okay.
what Lumi teaches kids, that they are the captain of their ship. And so he we there's little cartoons on there, and it's for kids age 3 to 7, to teach them that your body is yours. Nobody can touch it, nobody can get near it unless you say so. You are the captain, this is your ship, and you don't let anybody close unless
Wow.
you want them to. And so that's what Lumi does. And so um and we because we went back and forth, and it was just like, because at first I was like, why is there a robot on a ship? And he was like, that's the ridiculousness of it. I was like, okay.
So I love
So
this. So you have your material is for the adults that
adults.
need to be
Uh-huh.
protecting these children, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have material for children themselves.
Yes, because
It's
we want
awesome.
to yeah, we're like, so we have our grandkids. My youngest, oh well, no, she's not my youngest anymore, but my next to my youngest, little Salem, she loves watching Rachel and all her shows on YouTube. And we were like, wouldn't it be great if she could watch one of our shows? And in between that, the little ad break would be a Lumi character, and so it would be Luby. And so that's where we got that from. We were just like, well, wouldn't it be great if she, in the middle of that, she got something that was helpful, something that was teaching her that
Wow,
her body
right.
is her own, and she is the
Yes.
captain of her ship. And so, and it's everything that it even has like little bedtime stories um, that I had to read, but I read them in Lumi's voice. And so it's a whisper about, and everything is about finding your light, being in charge, and don't go away with strangers, don't all the things that because I remember thinking, because in my mind it's more like do you remember the McGruff crime dog from, it's kind of like that for
Yeah.
kids, like, yeah,
Yeah.
like something to teach
Yes.
kids, that good things. And so that's what he does. And so, but that's where that comes from, to teach kids that their body is their own, and
Yes.
they are not to be letting anybody touch their body. And what we have in the works coming up is going to be a handbook just for parents to understand what they need, because it's going to be, so the training is one thing, but I said, because it's geared towards organizations and
Hmm.
parents too, but organizations, because we go into the importance of policies, and we have about 15 different policies that will keep your organization safe. And so, and and we have a child safe pledge that we recommend everybody sign, and it be plastered all over your organization so everybody knows that you take kids being safe seriously. And so and having making sure everybody reads it, all the kids know it, they all get a copy, everybody knows that we're going to make sure kids are safe, nobody's touching
So,
your
and
kids
so
here.
this is for
So
organizations that have children entrusted to
yes,
them.
yes, because
Churches.
daycares, schools, all those things.
Okay.
We want all them to, and that way they know that their kids are safe, and that and that we have taken this intense training, and we have a policy for everything. Open door, open space policy. Two people, two adults driving a child home. There can't be one person taking a child home, and nothing like that. We don't, we have policies against all that to keep your organization safe. And so we have a
Right.
whole section that, or small section, that kind of goes on about the importance of having these
Mm-hmm.
policies, and how that when you go to redirect somebody, so like you said, so you open a door and you see somebody, so you can say you're empowered at that point. You're empowered to say, "Hey, that goes against our policy. You can't be
Yes.
no. You gotta."
I love
And
it.
that's what, yeah. And so not only do we tell you to have them, but we, reward those who enforce it and make sure that your place is not a place where people can harm a child. And so that's one of the things that we stress in our training, because it's terribly important, to know all this and not
Mm-hmm.
do something with it. Because I mean, because if you have, and then but then we give, and it's going to be in the book, but then we give parents, and I have things that we give. So if you get a membership and you're a parent, then we give you things that'll similar rules for house rules, especially if you're a
Oh,
single mother,
okay.
because single
Yes.
mothers are,
It's
so a
beautiful.
lot of pedophiles will look for single mothers because they
Yes.
get access to children.
Yes.
So and so we have, if you're a single mom, we have house rules. We have different rules that you can bring and introduce into your home that will keep your kids safe. Like we don't have, no closed doors, no, internet, and all those things are all monitored and looked at, and it just is the way it is. Just because, and things, and what you can say to your child, because they're going to resist, but
Mm-hmm.
they need to understand that you're trying to keep them, that your goal is to keep them safe, not to control them, but to keep them safe. And so we offer guidance on how to, talk to your child about that, and different things you can do to keep your child safe in this world, because online grooming is even more, it happens faster. And I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
why, but for some, I guess maybe because people are
Yeah,
online
why don't
more.
you talk about that a little bit? So, going now, moving online. I mean, this is just, yeah, you guys are doing such good work.
Hmm.
I'm just thinking, listening to you, how I can help you get this out more and more and more. It's such good
Yeah,
work.
thank you.
When you're talking about, so single parents, single dads, even for that matter,
Yeah.
because there are female pedophiles and
Oh
people
yes,
forget
there are.
that. I've had several people on sharing their stories about female pedophiles. My own personal, in my life, my
Yeah.
mother was a pedophile. So it's important even for fathers to be hearing this. But now the online grooming, talk about that a little bit and share what are like maybe the top three things that parents should be watching for. How do you
Oh,
monitor this? They shouldn't even be out there online
right. Well, I
freewheeling
think.
anyway, but
I think the in the so because it moves so quickly, and unlike, so when you go to redirect an adult who's harming a child, you have to deal with resistance, and we have a resistance training in there, on what
okay.
to say to people who are, and how to redirect that. And then when you do the redirection, um, we have actual acted out scripts where you'll see two actors, doing, and you see how that looks in real life. And so,
Oh, that's
um,
awesome. So that's part
you know,
one of your modules.
yeah, that's in module 4. Yeah.
Oh, that's
And so, yeah, so
awesome.
you'll see what it looks like when, when you go to redirect them and they give you resistance. And so, and what to say next. And so, so we do that, but we find, and we did it with the online part, but the online part was different because you get the resistance not from the groomer but from the victim, because they don't, they're going to
Mm,
defend what they're doing. Oh, he's my friend, and we're
yeah.
in love, and all this, and so we had to do one especially for that, because the resistance is going to come from your child. And so but some of the things that you want to look for when this is happening is they're guarding their phone.
Mm, hmm.
Like, they'll guard their phone, like they don't want you to see what's on that screen. But that's one thing they do. And then you'll have the mood swings for no reason, or they'll look at their phone and they'll have a mood swing, or you'll see excessive, like more than usual times online in their room with the door shut, that kind of thing. So you'll know that you have to just, and I know it's hard, especially if you're a single parent, because you're doing 1,000 things at once. It's hard to notice, but
Hmm.
you'll know, but those are the things to look out for when your child's spending way too much time in their room, when they're very possessive of their phone or their computer or their laptop. They don't want anybody touching that. And that happens anyway because they're teenagers. But when they get to the point where it's just really strong, then you
Hmm.
want to be concerned. And then they're up at they're online at odd hours, doing, when it, because that's a lot of times pedophiles, they'll wait for everybody else to be asleep, like 11 midnight, 1 o'clock, because that's when they can get
Right.
access to your child. And so you want to look, Kevin, you want to check out for things like that. If you
Or
start thinking, yeah.
Well, I was just
Hmm.
going to say my daughter and son-in-law implemented no phones in the bedroom. We're all putting our phones
Ooh,
in the kitchen, they plug them in, and nobody takes their phones in their room. And I
I like
think,
that.
how else do you make sure, you know what I mean, that these things are not happening if you don't
Hmm.
have some kind of those.
That's actually, yeah, that's actually one of the rules I'm writing. Actually, one of them. That's one of for the parents is yeah, put limits. You have to. I
You
mean,
have
and
to
then
limit your phones. Yeah.
yeah, you have to. You can, and then I mean, it's not supposed to be very helpful for you to sleep anyway. So it's actually has,
Right.
but yeah,
Very
yeah, that's
true.
one of
Yeah,
the
it's
things.
very,
Yeah,
very true. And
yeah.
I think it is just part of parenting anymore. I'd like to ask you now too, one of the things that's so difficult with childhood sexual crimes is that a vast majority, 80 to 90%, are done by people that you know, or they could be your spouse, they could be your
Yeah,
boyfriend, they could be
95%.
your
Yeah,
uncle. Yeah, 90, yeah, is it 95%?
yeah.
I know
He's
it's
in the
high.
'90s.
It's
Yeah, it's really
it's
high.
huge. It's a huge percentage. So this is the thing that people fail. We're failing children around this because we're too scared. Oh, that's not them. They really don't want to see this. Like you just talked about a lot of grooming. I bet people listening are like, whoa, I bet Uncle Sam's doing that. I bet my brother
Uh huh.
maybe is doing that. I bet, wow, I've seen my boyfriend tickle that. I've
Do
seen their father touch them in ways
mm,
that my children recoiled from. How do
yeah.
we begin to stand up and put the children's need above our need? We have such
Mm,
a need to people please that children are being hurt
yes.
through it, don't you think?
Yeah. And that, oh my gosh. And I think that's what makes it hard. I think that's what makes getting it out hard, the word out hard about what we do
Hmm.
hard, because like I said, as we told you before, we went to churches and it was a no, and so, and it's because I think it's all the norm, whatever people, I think whatever people, I don't know, I don't, nobody wants to be a troublemaker, but at the same time,
Hmm.
a child's future is at stake.
Right.
I
It's
mean,
uncomfortable. What
nobody wants
you
to be
It's
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to say, excuse me, I think. Or excuse me, I
Yeah,
heard some activity that didn't sound right. I'm concerned.
yeah.
I've heard three children say something about you. I need to stand up and say something. People are scared. And the
I
weirdest thing in
think
the world is people don't want to believe it.
Yes, that's oh my. Well, there's one thing I've learned is that a good thing of thumb is if you ever see that, focus on the action and not the person, or not like
Mhm.
instead of saying, "Oh, that's creepy, don't do that." Say, you know what, you probably shouldn't
Mhm.
do that. If they don't want you to do it, don't. Focus, but focus on the action, that whatever it is they did, and not the person. And just say,
Mhm.
you know
That's
what,
good.
this is and focus. What you want to do is you want to focus on the activity and support the child. So
Mhm.
those two things
Yes.
are what you do. Is you say, um, um, so I can think of a situation. What if a child was spending way too much time around an adult, and it didn't make any sense what for this child to be around this adult all the time, and it made you feel uncomfortable. So you wouldn't focus on the adult. You would just say, she should be down here with everybody else. Why should she be separated? That's going to make her feel
Right.
bad. Focus on her. That's the thing. I think what it is in our minds we're thinking we have our suspicions, and because we have
Mhm.
our suspicions, we take them into the conversation. But the best thing to do is to leave that to the side and focus on the action and reversing the action and the child, and supporting the child's well-being. If you focus on those two things and don't even think about this guy's creepy or just weird, or this guy's whatever, or this
Or the
person just
opposite.
weird.
This
Yeah,
person's just being nice. I'm
nice.
being
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
being I'm being suspicious, and suspicious minds are
yeah. But
not good. You know what I
don't put
mean?
labels on it. Yeah, I'm just being a goofball because I'm just being a
Yeah.
whatever because I'm just but at the same time, the best thing to do is to always tell yourself, let's err on the side of caution, and let's support the
Yes.
child, and let's
Yes.
focus on the action and not the person. Because if you do
That's a
that, then
wonderful thing to say.
yeah, yeah,
I think that
that's the best
people,
thing to do.
yeah, well, and children come forward and say things, and then adults don't listen. I'm stunned
Hmm.
how many times, or outside of the family, people will come in and say things. Adults don't listen, Sony. I don't
We have a
understand.
section of that.
What is
We
that
talk
about?
about
Talk
how
about
kids.
that for a minute.
Yeah, there's a section in there about the different ways that a child will disclose their abuse.
Talk about
So
that. I love it.
yeah, because there are different ways, and one thing a child's never going to do is come out and say. That's very
Hmm.
rare, but usually
Hmm.
what they'll do is they'll kind of test the waters, and they'll say, you know, um, they'll tell you, well, I don't want to go over their house anymore because, they did so, I just didn't have fun.
Hmm.
I don't want to go over anymore. Listen, you hear that? Say okay. And you can. What you don't want to do is you don't want to react angrily. You could say, oh
Hmm.
well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry that happened to you. Well, thank you for
Hmm.
telling me. Is there? You want to tell me anything else? And make it an open conversation, but you know don't drill down into the situation. Don't react angrily. That's the worst thing you can do. I learned that I was not a safe person when my kids were little because I was, they knew that their mom would kill a brick for them. And that is not a
Hmm.
good thing. As great as that is, if thank God nothing ever happened to them, but if something ever did, they were less inclined to tell me because they wouldn't want to see their mom upset. They wouldn't see their
Oh,
mom.
right.
Yeah, because remember, they're hyper.
Yes.
So if
No, that
they.
actually, I can think of a situation that
Mhm.
I mean, I hear about many situations, and sometimes children are scared when they know the parent would overreact if they told
Yeah.
them. Because
Yeah.
again, children are so sensitive to feel that they are complicit. I always talk about
Mhm.
abusers make you feel like you're in the crime with them instead of,
Yes.
I'm 61 years old and I tell my story. And do you know I still don't want to tell my story because it is
Yeah.
so ingrained in me that telling my story is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was a victim, but I still think, oh, I shouldn't tell that story. Don't tell that part. That's too bad. Think
Yeah.
about that. And here I do the
Oh,
work I do to bang the drum so that people can hear it's okay to tell the story. And I still don't want to tell my story.
yeah,
Not
it's
really.
still hard because it's just, yeah,
It's
you're right. It's
still
just
hard.
yeah, and then you carry that little girl with the shame in the back of your mind
Yes.
everywhere you go,
Yes.
and she's got, and so that goes everywhere you
Can
go,
you
and
can
so
Yes, can you talk about what does that look like? It's so hard for people to see when it's close family members. How does that grooming or how does the intervention or what does a child say when it's your Aunt Mary at the table or your cousin on the couch that's got a blanket? What does that
oh,
sound like when the child discloses?
well, it depends on the child. It's all going to be, but it's going to be bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah,
It's going to be, oh, I don't want to sit with him because he has that blanket. I don't want to know. They'll do little things here and there.
they
But
will.
I don't, unless you have told them from the beginning that their body is their own and they can tell
Mhm.
you even, and I think, and I have this in the training, tell your child, even if you feel bad,
Mhm.
even if the abuse felt good, even if you think you did something wrong, even if, I will always love you and I will always be there for you and I will not be mad at you. And you can tell me those even ifs, they need to hear that because then
Mhm.
they'll come to you and they'll talk to you and um, you have to lay that groundwork as soon as you know it's time to lay it. But
I think
yeah,
that's so beautiful because usually an abuser is not going to be a healthy person. So these people who are in relationships with pedophiles, these are not healthy people. I mean, if you're
no,
attracted to a child, I'm just going to tell you right now, their mental health isn't good. Like these are not healthy people. So
no,
unfortunately, most of the time in the dynamics are not good in the family for the child to come forward and tell. I
yeah,
just did this one interview where the man said, well, what was I even going to tell? They don't even have the vernacular to say what happened to them. They know they're terrified. They know it was wrong, but they don't even have the words to speak
no,
what happened. So
no.
it really, listening to you again, it makes me know it breaks my heart because the children are reliant on the protection of the adults around them, right?
Yeah.
And that's what
And
you're doing is the service is I'm so disheartened, and yet I'm not that you said I went to churches and they didn't want my work. Talk to me
no,
about that for a minute because I always
it
think the spirit of
was,
religion hides pedophiles and Jesus is not the spirit of religion. And so, why do churches not want to do more to protect our children?
I think it's well, I think well, you could think the worst and say, well, because they all, but I think another hand is it sometimes they believe that children lie, which is such a small percentage.
Hmm.
But they do want to think that children are lying, trying to get attention.
Wow.
And that's not,
Wow.
yeah, because, but what they don't realize is if they've ever seen this happen, and the child and and somebody and someone said, oh, they're lying, you're
Hmm.
likely, and you believe the child's lying and the adult is safe, that's because they groomed you too. You just don't realize it. But that's,
Oh, that is such
they
wisdom in
they
that.
don't get that, they don't get,
That's
they've been
right.
duped too because pedophiles groom everybody. So they groom everybody
Oh,
around their target. So you don't believe, you
yes.
think the child's lying. Why? Because you've been groomed as well. So I think um, I think that that goes a long way, and I think that's got something to do with it. And then I think there's a lot of people pleasing, and then people who
Yeah.
don't want to talk about it. Remember, it's a very uncomfortable subject. I have people, I mean,
Yes.
you know, people on, Facebook or, different social media, they will look at it, but they will go past it because it's just an uncomfortable
Hmm.
topic, you know, and, you
And
know
can I
what?
tell you this, though, in full authority of God, He's moving around this right now, Sonia. I see so many people Sony, I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name.
No,
I
you're
see
fine.
so many people standing up right now saying enough is enough. This is a
Yes,
crime of hell that is taking people out before they can even hit a choice of their own. He's
yes,
taking people out. And I'm going to say this with authority from the throne of God. God's coming to find you, and he's going to take this down
yes,
because it's killing millions and millions of people. And I am so
yes.
thankful to be here and support your work. And I'm going to be praying about
Thank
how to
you.
support you more because
I
what you're
appreciate
doing,
that.
I'm telling you,
And
in authority from the kingdom of God, you keep going. What you're doing is so
thank
good. And
you.
I want
I
to
appreciate that.
I really want to do more. You know what I'd like to do is have a follow up. We're at time now, and I really try to stay at an hour just for our listeners. I'd like
Yeah.
to have you come back on and just demonstrate your
Hmm.
material. Okay, let's
Oh,
do where you
sure.
share your screen and you come
Yeah,
on and you talk a little
absolutely. I
bit
would love
about
to
your
do
work.
that.
I just
Hmm.
think this is so wonderful. I'm going to be praying about how to support you because this is
I
work.
appreciate
This is
that.
godly work. God is moving around
Yes.
this area and
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I feel it all the time that I need to be quiet. I need to back down. These are things not to be
Hmm.
talked about. I'm
Yep.
telling hell right now, we are
Don't.
coming and we are not
You're
backing
doggone
down because
right.
children
Yes.
we are losing people to
Yeah.
this
I mean,
crime and it's time.
yeah, because you look at the drug epidemic. These people are all
Yes,
numbing themselves. You wonder
that's
why?
right.
I mean,
That's
this.
right.
I mean, we are losing generations to this
We
awfulness, and
are
this is
100%
terrible.
sweetness,
Yeah.
100%. Now, I love to, we are going to have you back and start be thinking about that. I want you to come back and talk about what you have. And I will put posts on how to find you in the,
Okay.
I'll put all of your information, but I do want you to come back and I want you to walk
Oh,
us through and I want you to share your screen and show what we've
sure.
got. And let's get this message out. But I
Yes.
want to give it back to you right now before we close and just the final, anything and final parting. Thank you so much for being here. This was
Thank
fantastic.
you.
I could talk for another hour easily.
Yes. Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful. And remember, we do all this, the training and all that. We have a pay what you can. So if your organization is small, under 25 people, we got you. We don't ever want to have budgets to go to get in the way of protecting kids. We will work with you. Call us. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
what you
is
need to know.
wonderful. All right,
Yeah.
you keep that January schedule that we have because I'm going to have you
Okay.
back on and I want
Okay.
you we'll share your screen and we're going to show more about this. But thank you so much. God bless you for all the work. I
Thank
just
you.
send
Bless you too.
protective angels right now over you. Continue to be
Thank you.
strong. I'm here with you. Thank you so much. I'll see
Thank
you in
you.
January.
All right. See you then. Bye.
All right. Good
All right.
night.
Good night. Okay.